Hello everybody, this is Stonewall, and today we're going to do a little bit of a look through the menus and kind of my review or my thoughts on the Infinite Warfare beta. This is the last day of the beta when I'm recording this. I'm not sure when it'll go up, but this is Monday. There's just a few hours left for the beta, but we're going to look through some of the menus and talk about it a little bit. So overall, I think it was pretty successful. There were definitely some rough patches. Especially the launch on PlayStation 4 was kind of rough, and then PlayStation had some issues on their end as well. And it seems like several times stuff was on PlayStation's end. Overall, I think it went well. Hopefully they got enough data and stats to be able to fix a few things. I had a few really nasty spawns. I think on my terminal gun game video, you'll see one of the worst ones ever whenever I spawn into that middle room. I think I was on the second weapon or something like that. But other than that, I didn't really have many, and I think part of the reason the beta is a good idea to be able to get enough stats is that playing on LAN and whenever you're just running one or two matches at a time, it's really hard to get stats on things that happen 1 in a million or 1 in 1,000 times, 1 every 10,000. Because I don't know how many times I've had to respawn in this game, but I've only, if I can count on one hand how many times I've had a bad spawn, then the percentages are really good, but in a polished game you don't want that to happen at all. So it's one of those things that takes a little bit of data to be able to study effectively. Other things, weapon balance feels pretty good. I haven't run into any weapons that I feel like were completely overpowered or unbalanced. I know sniping is really fairly easy in this game, which is going to make a lot of people happy, but some people who don't like sniping as much or the way it is in this game are not going to be happy with it. And I know they were working on some balance issues or some balance changes to fix that. I think the variants are cool. The supply drops, one of the biggest things that I think are fixed with the supply drops is the fact that you can earn any of the weapons that you want. It's not all luck based at this point. I don't know if they'll add some later that will only be available in supply drops or anything like that. So I think right now everything is pretty well balanced. I haven't run into any weapons, any variants specifically that I'm like, man, that ability is just too powerful or anything like that. The maps, I think, are pretty good. One thing I will say is if you don't know the maps, especially Frontier, that map can get very crazy and very hectic. If you don't know the map, you're going to struggle with it. Once you learn it, you can use a lot of the movement mechanics and everything like that to your advantage in moving around the maps. And that's just how it is. Excuse me. That's just how it is in any Call of Duty game. For the most part, you know, the weapon, the aiming, the moving, all of that is very close on all the Call of Duty games. But the biggest thing for me to learn in between games is the new maps and how to move around them. What are the hot spots? What lines of sight to check? Tricky little holes you can look through to see where somebody's coming from or to have good cover from. I really like the fire rate on the semi-automatic weapons. Because I've got a pretty good trigger finger, I feel like Black Ops 3 punished us a little bit too much whenever you look at the fire rate on the Shiva. And even on the MX Garand, it's still kind of slow. I can still oversample it. And by the way, oversampling is where you pull the trigger faster than the gun will cycle. Now I know in Black Ops 3 they did some interesting stuff where they basically they made it to where it would only fire at its max rate. I don't know if you could still oversample it, but what it would do is it would keep firing after you stopped pulling the trigger, which was kind of weird. It felt a little bit odd at some points. But other than that, it was pretty well done, and I can see where if somebody had a modded controller that would be a big issue. But I don't think any of the weapons are to the point where you're just going to get melted if the other person has a modded controller. I think that's the main reason for limiting the fire rate, but I like the fire rate on most of these in this game. I have heard some complaints about the map layouts and things like that, how a lot of people like the Treyarch 3-lane map design and all of that. I do kind of like that. There are 3 main routes, but there's also the element of a little bit of randomness to make it more interesting. So some maps are a little bit too convoluted. I think was it called Chasm from Ghosts? It was one where at some points there were about 3 layers, and it was just really mixed up. If you knew the map, it was good, but if you only partially knew it, it was really strange. And I think Frontier is bordering on that, but it's not quite as bad, I don't think. But anyways, that's just some of my thoughts on the Infinite Warfare beta. Let me know what you think, down in the comments or anything like that. Yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely going to be playing the full version of the game. I had already pre-ordered it, of course. So, anyways, this is Stonewall signing off, and I'll see you in another video.